right,
It hasn't
everybody who
doubled
just
yet.
joined.
Mira and Alex were saving me this evening while I was attempting to make dough.
Oh, Leah, you're muted.
How did that happen? I was saying, who here has made babka before? If you're raising your hand, I can't see you, so you have to unmute yourself.
I have.
Who's made what?
Babka.
I haven't. No.
Okay. Not too tough.
If you can get the yeast to work.
You can get these to work. That's right. It sounds like it might be some time for some fresh yeast for you, but yeah.
But the date is like 2022.
Oh, that should work then.
It'll work in my bread machine, I guess.
Is your water hot enough?
I even measured the water, but maybe it's the yeast, because Mira brought over some yeast in the middle of our trying to do it, which was my savior, and that worked. And I put it in the oven because I was using a metal pan, and I think that just got too cold too quickly. A metal bowl.
Oh, that could be.
Yeah.
Totally possible. So I think we're still a minute away maybe, and then we'll start. It's just
Okay.
7:30 now, so maybe we'll wait one more minute and then we'll begin.
Okay.
Just to give
Gotcha,
anybody
did
else
your
a
dough
few
rise?
minutes. Hi, Debbie.
Just a little bit.
Could I ask a question?
Sure, of course.
Could you use all-purpose flour instead of the bread flour?
Yes, you can. I like to use bread flour better because it gives it a little bit more of a chewy texture, but you can definitely use all-purpose flour.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
What about whole wheat?
I would not use whole wheat for babka. I think for challah, go for it. But if you're already doing babka, just eat a smaller slice. That's what I would say.
Yeah, you're right. If you're just gonna do babka. What the heck?
I just want the texture won't be there for your babka, and it'll be sad because you put in so much effort.
Right.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Instead of margarine,
hmm
could you use oil?
So yes, I don't use margarine. I use Earth Balance. So that's another nice option. But
What do you use?
Earth Balance, it's
Oh, yeah.
vegan. I can show you the package.
What about butter?
Yeah, you could definitely use butter.
Definitely.
But if you want to make it non-dairy, this is what I get.
Earth balance.
Earth Balance. They're called vegan buttery sticks. It's like a vegetable oil spread, non-hydrogenated. And it's nice for baking. It's not so hard to get. I think they have them in most grocery stores.
They were out of it all last week at Jewel.
Oh, wow.
And I don't have it at Hungarian.
Got it. Yeah, you can use oil. I would use a little less oil than you use margarine or butter or Earth Balance. Okay. Should we begin? Do you think we're going to get a few more people, or should we start?
I think we can start. I'm gonna mute up everybody. If you have questions, put them in the chat and I'll ask Leah. And if it's something you really want to talk to her, then I'll unmute you. Okay, that way it'll be easier.
Yeah, questions are great. We just want to make sure that the frame stays on the demonstration so that everybody can kind of see what's happening. So hi everybody. I'm so happy to be here talking about babka with you guys. I can't read the questions because it's on I have my phone set up with the Zoom and the tripod. So Karen's gonna help out with the questions. It just might take a minute to get to me, but I'm happy to be here. So thanks for joining me. We're gonna make
Well, Leah, hold on a second. I have to unmute you. Sorry. Okay,
problem.
There you go.
Okay, so we're gonna do this all in kind of a shorter time frame. Usually we take a little extra time for the babka to rise in different stages, but we're gonna do it all in one go so we can get it in. And actually, I kind of like a babka that's a little denser because it's a little chocolatier. It's really delicious, but you'll have to let me know what you think yourselves. Try it out, and I can't wait to see pictures of all your babkas after the class. So we're going to start. I have the recipe right in front of me over here. I have all my ingredients ready, and let's begin. So we're going to start by measuring out the warm water and proofing the yeast. So I'm going to do proof the yeast in this measuring cup. So while this is bubbling, I can measure out my flour and the rest of the ingredients in my bowl. So we're going to start here with 1 1/4 cups of warm water. And I like my water to be nice and hot because I use instant yeast. But technically you don't really need to proof instant yeast. You can just mix it in, but it gives it a little bit of a kickstart when you do proof it, which is helpful when you're making an enriched dough. That means a dough that has like sugar and eggs and stuff like that in it. So 4 1/2 teaspoons of yeast and 1/2 cup of sugar. And we're gonna mix that all together in this measuring cup. I'll leave it to bubble and foam and proof. Okay, everybody with me? Any questions so far? No, we're all good? Okay.
Good.
So this is gonna, you can see, nothing's happening yet, but we're gonna let this sit and it's gonna start to bubble and foam. Oh, and have 1 to 2 teaspoons of vanilla sugar. So I'm actually going to use vanilla extract and I'm going to add it in with the eggs. So if you don't have vanilla sugar, you can replace it with vanilla extract. If you have vanilla sugar, you can add it in now with the yeast while it's proofing. So now we're going to do the flour. 4 1/2 cups. So we're going to get started on that. And I always tell people to make sure that they're not packing their flour into their cup, because if you do, then you end up with a denser dough. So make sure that you're not packing it in, leaving it nice and fluffy in there. You can always add in a little more flour later. It's a little harder when you're kneading by hand to add in water. So that's 3. Hard for me to talk and measure at the same time because I lose my count. 4, and then 1/2 cup. Okay. Okay. So 4 1/2 cups, and then we're gonna do the salt. So hopefully your yeast should be looking nice by now and starting to get a little foamy. So 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then 2 eggs. Move this over. And if at some point you need me to tilt my screen or you can't see something, just let me know. But I'm going to try to make sure everything is nice and clear on the camera. So 2 eggs. So 1, 2. And 1/2 cup of oil. Oh, it's so quiet because I'm just talking to myself. How's your day, Karen?
It's good so far.
Good so far. Good. So I always forget. I have 1 Pyrex that actually measuring cup that I don't know if you can see, but the numbers have worn off the bottom. So I'm always guessing when it comes to this one. I always forget to replace this. that's half a cup of oil. Okay, so in this bowl, you should have the eggs, 2 eggs, half a cup of canola oil, 4.5 cups of bread flour, and half a teaspoon of salt. And in this bowl, you should have your yeast foaming up, so that you can see it's getting nice and foamy. So that means that it's activated, and we're gonna pour it in the bowl. Really often I would let that go for longer, like maybe 10 minutes, or sometimes I go do other things and I come back. There we go. But you can see it's like, yeah.
Nancy Schwartz says she made the recipe last night and was so good. She loved your challah recipe as well. Thanks for doing these.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. Thanks, Nancy. So great to get good feedback. Okay, so we're just gonna mix. So it's like, couldn't be easier. Put everything in the bowl, mix it together. If you're short on time, you don't even have to proof the yeast. You could just put all the ingredients into the bowl and start mixing.
Faye Levinson wants to know if you're using instant yeast, do you have to proof it?
No, so you don't have to, but I like to do it because it gives the yeast a little bit of a head start, gives it a little bit of a boost, which is helpful when you're making an enriched dough. But no, for instant yeast, you don't have to. For active dry yeast, you always need to proof it. But for instant yeast, you don't. So you can see how the dough is coming together. It has some streaks from the egg yolks because I didn't mix those up before I put them in, but that's okay. That'll come out when we need it. But you see how it's a nice shaggy mass. It's not too loose. It's a nice soft dough. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna turn it out and eat it just like you would challah. So I have this group on Facebook. For those of you who don't know, it's called Challah Baking for Dummies. It's not actually for dummies. A lot of the people there are really great bakers, but it's a fun group where people come and they bake challah and they post pictures and ideas and ask questions and all that stuff. And a lot of times people ask about babka, and somebody recently asked if they can make babka out of their leftover challah dough. And I commented because I remember reading a long time ago that actually that was the original babka was made with leftover challah dough. If people had a little extra, they would mix it up with the sweet filling, and that's how they would make their babka. So you can see that my dough is very sticky. You see it's like very soft and sticky. It's sticking to the counter. But like I said before, I'd rather add more flour than have to add more water. So I'm taking out a little bit of flour, just sprinkling it, and I'm gonna knead it like that. So just a little on the counter. And when you knead, you're pushing out with the palm of your hands, like that, pushing out, and then folding it back, giving it a little turn, pushing out, fold it back, give it a little turn, like that. So how's it going for everybody who's baking along with me? Are you managing so far? Everybody looks good? So this is one of my favorite tools. If you were in my last class on challah, you'll remember it's a little bench scraper. I have one that's plastic and one that's metal, and they're both fantastic for cleaning out the bowl and kneading and all that stuff. So you can see already that the dough looks totally different than it did a few minutes ago. Mm-hmm. It's much smoother, easier to handle. It's one consistent dough, and then you can kind of keep on going and kneading it like that. If you have a bread machine or a mixer, then this is really, really, really easy, because all you've got to do is dump it in the bowl of the bread machine or the mixer and just let it go for about 10 minutes. Instead, we're going to get a workout. So you just push it out, pull it back. Oh, you know what? I forgot my vanilla. That's okay. It'll still be good. There you go.
Okay, someone asked if you could slow down a little.
Oh, of course. I'm so sorry. Sure. Sorry. So I'll just play with my dough a little bit while I let everybody catch up.
I want to say that your technique is the things you taught even in the challah class are so very helpful. My challahs came out so much more beautiful after watching how you treat the dough and do the different things to it. So
Thank you so much. That's very good to know. Thank you. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about kneading. I mentioned this in the challah class, but I think it's worth repeating, which is that it's helpful if you're kneading by hand to take breaks actually while you're kneading. You don't need to knead for a full 10 minutes. You can really knead for 3 minutes and then take a break for 3 minutes and knead for 3 minutes. And the break helps the gluten align, and it actually will make your dough a little easier to handle. Basically kind of do the work for you without you having to do the heavy lifting. So it's especially helpful if you're doing other projects in addition to challah, which I know many of us are busy and we're not just doing one thing. So it's helpful sometimes to knead a little, do something else, come back to it, knead a little more, do something else, come back to it. It's very helpful. Just make sure that when you're leaving it for a little rest, you're covering it with saran wrap or a damp towel just so that dough doesn't dry out.
Okay, Leah, if you use a bread machine, do you use the complete an hour and a half cycle?
Such a good question. So I haven't used a bread machine in many years. I think you could, because all that does is it kneads it and then it lets it rise in the bread machine, right? I believe. So I believe then yes. So it's the same as kind of letting it being kneaded by hand and then let it rise. So you can always take it out of the bread machine after the kneading is done, and then let it rise in a bowl on your counter instead. But you can see that here, like even from a few minutes ago, the texture is like totally different. It's smooth, it's round, it's not sticky, right? At all, which is really going to be nice for us when we roll it out. We can go for another minute maybe. So like I mentioned at the beginning, for those of us who joined a little late, instead of letting the dough rise for its many stages, we're gonna do a very abbreviated rise, which actually is similar to kokosh, which is like a Hungarian babka, just less fluffy, more layers. So we're gonna kind of do a hybrid here. We used to get kokosh from Hermes Bakery in Toronto. So good. Okay, so this is looking really good to me. You can see like it's really easy to knead. You just like push out, pull in, super smooth, doesn't stick, nice and easy. As you're kneading, the dough might start to stick a little more, and that's because the heat of your hands warms the dough. And as dough warms, it can become a little stickier. I like to, often I'll put my dough in the fridge to rise. So you can do that here with the babka dough too. You can put it in the fridge to rise for up to 24 hours in an oiled bowl, greased bowl, and then with some saran wrap on top. So I'm just gonna show you something that I do sometimes when I'm kneading, which I find to be helpful. It's a technique that I picked up from sourdough baking. What I do is I put the dough out and I let it kind of stretch a little bit. And then I kind of fold it in over itself and then kind of give it a little slap and do it again. So if you ever want to try something different when you're kneading, you're getting bored, you just kind of slap it down, fold it over, give it a little turn. Called the slap and fold. It's actually really helpful if you have like a super hydrated dough, a dough that's really sticky. This is not that, but it's still fun to do, especially if you're kneading for a while. Kneading can be a little boring, or I should say tedious. Any other questions? Okay. Great. Next class, I have to come with some stand-up material, I think. So I'm not just talking to myself. Okay, so I'm cleaning up the bowl a little bit because I don't want to wash it out just because I don't want to, but you could. I'm just giving it a little scrape. And I'm going to put a little bit of, I'm going to grease the bowl with a little bit of canola oil. You can use spray. You can use butter or earth balance or margarine or whatever. Just gonna grease the bowl a little bit. And then we're gonna put the dough in there to rest. And we grease the bowl so it doesn't dry out. Okay, so you can see the dough is really nice and we're gonna let it have a little rest. So usually we let it rise for about 1 to 2 hours, but we're going to do a shortcut and we're just gonna let it rise for a little bit. So we're gonna put the dough, this is the bottom, this is the top. We're gonna put it down in top down and then turn it around so that the top is covered with the oil, completely covered. I'm gonna grab a little saran to stick on top and then we'll go on to make the filling.
Leah, how much vanilla extract goes in?
1 to 2 teaspoons. If you're not like me and you remember to put in the vanilla extract, if you weren't doing the vanilla sugar. Okay, so while this is resting, we're gonna make the rest of the ingredients for the babka. First, I'm gonna have a little sip of my tea because I'm out of breath from all my kneading. Okay, let's continue. So I have my bowl and we're going to do the filling. We're going to start with 2 sticks of unsalted margarine. I use Earth Balance because it's non-hydrogenated, but use whatever you like. You can use butter, you can use Earth Balance. We talked at the beginning, you can use oil. I don't know the exact amount for oil. I think I would just do a quick Google search and do the conversion, or you can ask me afterwards and I'm happy to find that information for you. So I had already melted mine, but I'm gonna try to go a little slow for anybody who needs to melt theirs in the microwave or something on the stove. This is actually a really nice filling. It works really well. If you wanna make arugula, you could do the same, basically the same recipe, use the same filling, you just do a different. Somebody's saying mine was so much wetter than yours, but I didn't catch the end of that. If you're,
Mine seems to be much wetter than yours. I added a bunch of flour. Do you think it'll end up okay?
yes, totally. You just want the end result to be like a nice springy kind of supple dough, not too sticky and not too dry. Kind of like if you've ever made challah dough, it's kind of like this, a similar texture. You want it to be soft, not too sticky, easy to work with. Okay, filling. We're gonna continue. So we have the melted Earth Balance. I have 1 package of chocolate pudding in there. Now we're gonna keep on going, adding an egg.
Would using butter in both the dough and the filling be too rich?
Too rich? I don't know. I mean, it sounds delicious. Probably be very, very tasty. I think that that's great. Go for it. That's what I would do. It sounds delicious.
When I showed this recipe to my daughter, she said, "Oh, great. It looks like a heart attack in a baking pan."
Oh my goodness.
Margarine.
Look, are you gonna have your babka for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? No, don't do that. But if you choose to do that, I take no responsibility. Okay, 1/2 cup of water. We're gonna add that in. I have some warm water over here. I added in an egg. I added in the chocolate pudding mix. I added in the melted butter and 2 cups of sugar. So this is just really nice and easy. We're just gonna put everything in. I You can see I don't put, I mean, it's not so scant, but I don't always bother to do a full cup when I'm making something like this because I find a lot of our baked goods are quite sweet. So feel free to do
Can
the
you show
same.
the box of the chocolate pudding that you use?
Totally. It's in the recycling. Give me 1 second. Fishing it out for you. Okay. Here you go. I got Osam chocolate pudding. I think I got this at Hungarian a little while ago. Yeah. I'm just gonna wash my hands. Give me a second. Okay, is everybody kind of caught up to where we are? And we're gonna add in cocoa powder. 1 cup of cocoa powder. So there are different kinds of cocoa powder. I remember reading which one had more starch in it. I think it was Dutch cocoa powder actually has more starch in it than natural cocoa powder. So that just means that your filling will be a little drier. You'll be able to see once you mix it. But because we have the chocolate pudding in there, it kind of gives it a nice consistency because of the cornstarch, which helps to absorb some of the extra liquid, which will make your babka filling not like ooze out too much. So I'm just gonna.
Does the pudding need to be instant?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Is it supposed to? Batya says hers is watery. Is it supposed to be a thin mix
Of the filling? So it will thicken up a little bit after a few minutes. You're going to see because of the cornstarch in the pudding. You're going to see that the mixture will thicken a little. I'm going to show you what mine looks like in a minute, so you can kind of get a sense of what the texture should be like. So we're going to leave this to make the crumbs in a minute, and you're going to see that it'll thicken up a little as we go. So I have some lumps from my cocoa. If your cocoa is very lumpy, you can use a whisk to kind of get those out, or sift your cocoa powder if you want for next time. I don't do that. I like to make as little dishes and make it as quickly as possible. Okay, so this is the texture of my filling. So you can see it's not so liquidy. It's got kind of holds a little bit. It's pretty much the texture, I would say, of chocolate pudding. So if yours is thinner than this, what would I do? I think I would add maybe a little extra cocoa powder, not a lot, maybe in, a half a tablespoon at a time, just to see if you can get a little bit thicker. And but then I wouldn't mess around with it too much. You can have a thinner filling and it would still be fine. I don't want you to change the ratio too much. I don't think that'll be so good for your final product. Okay, so we have the filling, we have the babka dough, which is resting nicely. And now we're gonna make the crumbs that go on the top of the babka. I have my bowl here. So there are a little extra dishes you're gonna have to do for this recipe, but c'est la vie. Okay, so the crumb recipe is kind of all the way at the very bottom of the page if you printed it to the bottom of the recipe. So we're gonna grab another stick of this earth balance or butter. You can use oil and drop it in. And we're gonna do 1 cup of flour. So I'm sure all of you are kind of familiar with these crumbs. They're really delicious. They kind of take the babka over the top to the next level. Okay. So a cup of flour and a cup of sugar. And I'm gonna put in, I do have some vanilla sugar. I'm gonna put it in here because I mixed it before, but you don't have to. If you want to, you could add a little vanilla sugar there, or you can add a little bit of vanilla extract, just not too much vanilla extract because it'll change the consistency if you use too much liquid. And then we're going to smush it up with our fork. We're looking for crumbs, like pea-sized crumbs. Any questions? Good. So are you guys gonna eat your babka tonight, or are you gonna freeze it for Shabbat or for Thanksgiving? Oh, very nice, very nice.
What's vanilla sugar?
Oh, good question. Vanilla sugar is like this. It's like a Hamish kind of product. You can only really get it at kosher groceries. This one's made by Geffen. It's basically sugar and vanillin. So it's like artificial vanilla. If you use artificial vanilla extract, it's kind of the same thing. It's just mixed in with sugar. I have real vanilla. I have vanilla sugar that I bought. I think I bought that around Pesach time, and I'm just finishing it now. So yeah.
Could you make it by putting a vanilla bean in some sugar?
That's the more ideal situation. I would say do that before you go out and buy vanilla sugar. That's definitely a better product because it's nothing artificial or fake, and vanilla bean has such a lovely aroma. So yeah, you can definitely do that. You take the vanilla bean, and then you can use the vanilla bean that you've used the seeds for something else that's already been scraped out, and then just put the vanilla bean in with your sugar, and it'll make really lovely vanilla sugar.
Faye says her mother used only vanilla sugar. Dr. Eckers.
Okay, well, there you go. Okay, so I'm starting, takes a little bit of also muscle to break it down. If you're so inclined, you can always zap the butter in the microwave for maybe 10 or 15 seconds before you start the process. And that'll make it a little easier to smash. But you can see that it's starting to get kind of that crummy texture. I'm just gonna work it a little bit with my hands, my clean hands, and kind of work the butter through that. By the way, whoever said the heart attack comment, you should look at some more traditional recipes for babka. Like there's like the Ottolenghi krantz cake recipe, which had, or Smitten Kitchen babka, which I think is actually based on the Ottolenghi recipe, but like, oh my gosh, so much butter, so much butter. This is really tame in comparison. So you can see like it's kind of hard. It was kind of hard for me to finish this up with my fork, but you can see that it's really nice and sandy, and it's kind of bigger chunks and smaller chunks, and that'll really, it'll be a nice texture on top of the babka.
Do you ever put different fillings in your babka?
Oh my gosh, totally. And I should have mentioned that before. So whoever asked the question, thank you so much. You can do cinnamon sugar, you could do Nutella, you could do chocolate spread, you could go savory. I wouldn't put in vanilla if you're doing it savory, but you could do like pesto or onion jam, like caramelized onions with some herbs or mushrooms. That would be so good, like wild mushrooms with caramelized onion. So tasty. You could do, let me think what else. You could do like s'mores. You can put in mini marshmallows in the topping. You could do white chocolate. I think Naomi TGIS, who's this Instagram bread baking and challah challah and babka baking personality on Instagram. She does like tons and tons of different kinds of combinations. So if you're looking for inspiration, I would suggest you check her out because she's got a lot of great ideas. Poppy seed, I saw that one. Yeah, sure, poppy seed, why not? Poppy seed. I would add a little bit of, I think if you're gonna do a poppy seed filling, I would look up a recipe for a poppy seed filling, because if you just do a little bit of poppy seed and like butter, I don't think that the poppy seed will taste so good, just the texture. So there are recipes for poppy seed filling where you basically cook it down a little bit with, I think, a little bit of lemon and sugar and some kind of fat. And I think that that's the way you want to go if you're going to do poppy seed. Sometimes with my chocolate filling, I'll add in a little bit of either espresso powder or instant coffee just to kind of boost the chocolatey flavor. That's also really good. Sometimes I add in mini chocolate chips. You can get like micro chocolate chips sometimes, which are even smaller than mini chocolate chips. And if you're going to do chocolate, I would either do the micro or I would actually shave some chocolate, because the if you do regular size chocolate chips, you'll see that when you roll it, the chocolate chips poke through the dough and tear the dough a little bit. So I wouldn't do regular chocolate chips. I would either shave or chop chocolate or do the micro chocolate chips.
Okay, Mira asked, she does the filling need water added? She sees in the recipe it does, but hers seems okay without it.
I did use the water in my filling. I'm going to show you what the texture looks like. It's kind of thick. Like I said, you can see that it kind of set a little bit. So this is kind of the texture you want for your filling after it's sat for a few minutes. So you can see it's kind of nice and thick. If it's looser than that,
Yeah, mine is like brownie mix.
Like brownie mix. Okay, so
Yeah.
it could either be, the brand of your cocoa or the brand of your pudding. So if it's, it'll still come out fine. It just might run a little bit out of your pan. So I would just make sure that when you're baking it, it's kind of in an enclosed parchment so that you don't end up with filling all over the bottom of your oven. Okay, so we're going to go on to the next step. We're going to start making our babka. So I've got my workspace over here, just giving it a little tidy up before we begin. Okay, so here's my dough. We're gonna use this for 2 babkas. Because we didn't let it rise for a full hour and a half, 1 to 2 hours, we're not gonna quite get as much stretch out of it as we would have if we had let it rise, but that's fine. We're gonna persevere. Okay, so we have our dough, we're gonna cut it in half. So I have a little knife. Okay, so we're gonna put the other 1/2 on the side. I'm just putting it back in the bowl. It will be nice to cover that so it doesn't dry out. And you can see how nice and stretchy the dough is. Like, look how nice that is. Beautiful. Because we needed it for a while. We really let it develop the gluten. So now we're just gonna, I'm patting it out into a rectangular shape. Let me push this down a little so you can see better. And I have my rolling pin, and we're gonna start rolling it into nice rectangular shape. So if your dough does what my dough is doing a little bit, which is bouncing back or springing back after we roll it, you just want to give it a few minutes to rest and relax. It's just the gluten strands are a little bit tight. So the way to kind of counteract that is to give it a few minutes break and then kind of get back to it. But I'm just gonna keep on going. Me versus the dough. Usually I win. Okay, so we're gonna keep on going, making this into a nice tall rectangle. I'm gonna try to make it kind of nice and thin. My dough is not so sticky, but if your dough is sticky, you should put a little bit of flour underneath it to make sure that it doesn't stick too much and tear when you're rolling. I have a silicone mat that I use sometimes, but in a fit of decluttering, I folded it up and put it in a box to give away. So I was like, why do I need this? I just have my counter. Now I'm kind of missing it, but whatever. Okay. So if you have any kind of thick spots, you want to roll over those and make sure you don't have any thick pockets of dough anywhere. So you can see a nice large rectangle, fairly thin. Dough is fairly consistent. How's everybody doing? Are we on the same page? Am I going too fast? Do you want me to take a break here? Everybody managing? Okay, I'm gonna keep that going, but definitely pause me. Tell me to stop if I'm going too fast. Okay. Hold on, a little sip of water. Okay, I'm gonna grab a little tool that I forgot to set out, if I can find it. If I can't, then I can't. And it seems like I can't. I have an offset spatula, which is great for spreading filling like this. But it seems like in that same fit of decluttering, I put it somewhere and now I can't find it. So we're not going to use it. We're just going to use our spatula. So we only want to use about half the filling, not the whole filling, because we're going to use the other half for the other babka. We're going to spread. It's kind of the fun part. Really nice and easy. Chocolatey, looks delicious, smells really good. Hope all of yours smells this good. So we're just, so I am bringing the filling to the edge on this side, and I'm leaving a little space on this side. You don't have to do it like that, but you can if you want. I think it helps the filling from seeping out a little bit on the end because you're going to be rolling and applying pressure, and then the filling kind of smushes a little bit as you go. And so naturally it will come to the end by itself. So I'm not going to do that. Sometimes I forget my own rules though, and I do it anyways. So I still have a little extra filling here, which makes sense because our dough isn't as voluminous as it would have been if we had waited for it to rise. So we're just gonna putting a little extra filling there. Okay. I hope everybody is kind of at the same stage. If you're not, I would say take a pause from what you're doing so you can just see what we're doing here, how we're rolling, because you don't want to miss this. Okay, so we're going to start over here at the long end, and we're going to lift up the dough, and we're going to start to roll. And as we roll, we're going to stretch, give it a little roll, and we're going to go kind of down the line here. This is very messy. I wish I had remembered to wear the gloves that I put out next to my workstation, but I didn't. So we're just going to keep on going. So kind of a stretch and a roll. Stretch and roll. So if you've ever made cinnamon buns or babka or anything where you have to do something similar, very similar. And we're stretching so that we can get nice layers. And by kneading it enough, it means that when we give it a little stretch, it doesn't tear. It actually does stretch with us, which is so nice. So you can see we're trying to make a tight roll here. It's a little hard when the dough, when the filling is so, you know, it's wet and it's dirty, but it's still. And the more you stretch as you roll, the more layers you're going to have in your babka, the more delicious layers you're going to have. Oh, my nail just tore that piece over there. That's okay. Okay, so one long roll. That's a little messy. We're going to make a horseshoe or an upside down V, or however you want to call it. And then we're going to cut it. So I'm going to grab a sharp knife. I'm going to grab my chef's knife. You can all see. So this is nice and easy, okay? We're going to make a cut here at the top of the V. Slice. Now we have 2 rolls. Now we're going to make a cut down the middle of each of the rolls. So cut, 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 cut. This is kind of where the babka magic happens. Now we're going to take these, put them side by side, and we're going to do something really easy. We're just going to go over, twist, twist, twist. Just 3 twists, 3 easy twists. And that is our babka. And I'm going to show you how that's going to look in the pan once I grab my pan that I have aside. Wiping down my hands, they're full of chocolate. Where are my pans? Right here. Okay, so I have a loaf pan that I fitted up with parchment paper. That way my loaf pan doesn't get really dirty. So I have my loaf pan with parchment paper. And I'm going to take my babka, which looks kind of like a mush, that you're going to see that it's going to look beautiful when it's in the pan. And ta-da! And there you have it. And it's going to rise, and we're going to put the crumbs on it, and it's going to be beautiful. I added a lot of filling, so you can see it's really kind of oozing out. Usually you have a little bit of a better dough to filling ratio, but there you go. Are there any questions so far? No
Yes,
questions?
this class is being recorded. All of Leah's classes are recorded, and they're on the Skokie Valley YouTube page.
Yeah. I'm just giving my hands a little quick wash. I'm sorry. Just stepping away for a second. Here, I'm going to bring some, clean the counter so we can do the second one. You can see how it's a few steps and kind of a bunch of bowls, but it's actually fairly simple once you get into it. Okay, sorry for showing you this kind of stuff while I'm doing it. I'll put this up so you can ask any questions while I clean my counter for the next one.
If you refrigerate the dough, should you let it warm up before rolling it out?
No, I wouldn't. I would just go for it. I mean, you could put it on the kitchen counter a little bit to let it get a little warmer, but you don't have to. You might find that you have a little more resistance to the dough when you're rolling it. So you might need to take some breaks to let the dough relax a little bit. Like it might spring back so that when you try to roll it out, you'll see that the rectangle is pulling back towards you every time. But you can just try to keep on rolling or give it a little bit of a break, and you should be fine. Sorry guys, I'm just trying to reset my counter here. Any other questions?
He doesn't understand why you twisted it.
Well, I twisted it to help get those layers and the shape, kind of a traditional shape. I mean, if you don't want to do that, you certainly don't have to. You can make it in whatever shape you desire because it's your babka.
Oh, she said she doesn't know how you twisted it.
Oh, okay. We are going to do another one, so you're going to see. Okay, okay. So I have my second dough. Let me just wipe my counter dry so that my dough doesn't stick to it. Clean towel. Move my knife so it doesn't fall and drop on my foot. We don't want that recorded for the Skokie Valley YouTube channel, right? That would be awful. Oh my God. Okay, moving on. Here we have the second section of dough. Like before, nice and soft, easy to work with. We're gonna put it down. We're gonna do the exact same thing. So we're gonna make a nice big rectangle, and we're going to go and kind of do the exact same thing again. This gives our babka a little chance to have a rest, rise a little bit. Really, we should allow our babkas to rise for half an hour after we're done twisting and putting them in the pan before we bake them. So either if you're kind of in a rush, want to get it over with, you can skip that rise and put them in the oven straight away after we're done, or you can wait a little bit and do it later. So we still have a few more steps before we get to that anyways. So. How are you doing with time? What time is it?
It is 8:20.
There you go. 45 minutes, babka, start to finish. Almost finished. Start to almost finish. Never have to buy a Trader Joe's babka again. Or any other brand. We're an equal opportunity babka buyers here. So Karen.
Yeah.
I see that you make a lot of different kinds of challahs. So what's your challah combo this week?
This past week I did apple cinnamon.
Yum, that sounds delicious.
It was really good.
How do you do that?
Take apples and cut and cube them up, one apple, and set it on some paper towels to dry it out a little bit. And then on my strands, after I roll out the strands, I put in some brown sugar and cinnamon combo, and then sprinkle the apples on top, and then just pinch the strands together and braid it like usual.
Sounds so tasty. Do you have anything planned for this week for Thanksgiving challah?
I haven't thought about that yet.
I actually saw a really nice recipe for sweet potato challah.
Ooh.
It was like sweet potato with like cinnamon and kind of warm spices. Looked really delicious.
I've made pumpkin challah like that.
That sounds so good. Okay, here we go. So we're on to our second babka. I'm going to be a little stingier with the filling this time just because I don't feel like cleaning it up for my counter as much as I did last time. So we're going to keep on going here. Just want to make everything nice and covered. This is actually really therapeutic. Like there's such a nice texture for spreading. So who was having a problem with their filling? Was that Mira? Mira, how's your filling doing now?
No,
I didn't add the water, but I kind of took a break. I'm just watching you.
Cool, cool, cool. Don't despair. You can do it. I promise.
Because you seem to be you're a lot faster. So I'm just watching. So I have some tips
when you do it.
Yeah.
You can always text me afterwards if you need help. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Same deal as before. Actually, this time I think I'm going to wear my gloves. I'm smarter than I was 10 minutes ago. Okay.
okay. Please do this slowly.
Okay, we're going to do this slowly. And Karen, slow me down if I'm too fast, okay?
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to take a sip of my tea while we're... Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, let's go. So we are going to start rolling. So first what I do is I kind of tap the edge to kind of lift it up off the counter. So that's kind of the first step. And then I'm kind of giving the dough a little stretch and tuck it in. Little stretch and tuck it in. stretch and tuck all the way down the line so that I have, you can see kind of this is kind of folded over. And actually what we're going to do this time, just to try to save me from as much cleanup, is I'm going to fold in the bottom and the top as well, just to help prevent the dough from leaking as much as we go. So we're going to see, hopefully that'll help. Okay, so now we're going to keep on stretching and rolling. So stretch and roll, stretch and roll. Hopefully your dough isn't sticking to the counter. Stretch and roll. If it is sticking, this I can see is actually a little stickier than it was last time. I think it's because it's a little warmer. My kitchen's a little warm. So we're just rolling and tucking and stretching and rolling and all those good things as we go. The trick is not to get your fingers covered in chocolate filling as you go. That's really hard. If anybody knows how to do that, tell me. Okay. So you can see that I have one large log here on my counter. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lift it up and make a V, a horseshoe, just so that I have even strands. This helps guide our cut to make sure that we have even strands. Okay, so I'm going to give everybody a second to kind of catch up here. Okay, I have my knife. I'm going to give it a cut right at the top in the middle of the strands. So now I have two babka strands. I feel like the count, Sesame Street, 2 babka strands. Okay, so I have the 2 strands and I'm going to make a cut down the middle for each of them. So let's see if I can you see well? Okay, ready? Slice. This would actually probably work better with a serrated knife than a chef's knife. But here I am, I've committed. Okay, so I have 2 strands. I'm going to just kind of forget that they're cut right now. And I'm gonna go twist. See, I've got these 2. Twist, twist, twist. So you're not even paying attention to the fact that you cut them. That just helps open it up and make it look really nice. But all you're really doing is you're twisting the babka, the 2 strands over each other. And there you go. And then you put that in the pan, same as before. So let me grab the pan. Hopefully everybody caught that. Sorry, it looks a little bit messy. Not like a super glamorous thing, but I promise you it's delicious. I'm gonna take a quick break here, wash my hands, and write down the counter. And if anybody has any questions, I can take them.
Does the braided babka need to rise? Should it be chilled?
Okay, so we should let this rise for half an hour. I'm going to show you what to do next as if it rose for half an hour. You can either...
Would it work to shape it in a spiral like a Rosh Hashanah challah?
Sure, yeah, it will probably come out beautiful. Sometimes I'll take a babka and I'll make, instead of putting it in a loaf pan, I'll put it in a bundt pan, and then it makes a beautiful round shape that rises up with a nice kind of circle in the middle. nice shape too. And we were talking before about different flavors you can do. If you want to be want to go dairy, you can add all kinds of like cheese mixes. Probably be delicious, like spinach cheese. Probably be really good. Okay, here we go. So we have our two babkas.
If you do it in the bundt pan, do you use all the dough or just half?
All the dough. Use all the dough. Oh, like half the batch of dough, like we did here. I would use, it depends how big your bundt pan is. Like I've got these mini bunts, so I would use half, but if you're doing like a really big bundt pan, you might want to do the whole amount. How do you place it in the bundt pan? Let me show you. I think I can show you. So these are my mini buns, like I was mentioning before. They're super cute, you can see. So instead of just plopping it down into a loaf pan, you'd kind of, you'd like circle it around the center. So you'd put it like that, like a bun. I hope that answers your question. Any other questions?
What's the difference between babka and flavored challah?
So it's a really good question. I mean, there's not a huge difference. I think babka, you can see the way that we filled it. It's much thinner and there are more layers and more strands. Like even if you flavor a challah, usually you'll have more of the challah dough and less of the flavoring. And the flavoring is just kind of like fun surprises throughout the challah, but it's not like the main event. With babka, the filling is definitely the main event. You can see we have tons of chocolate filling here. It's not like a tiny amount. I feel like because when you make flavored challah, often you're putting a filling inside each strand. The ratio of filling to challah is much smaller than it is in a babka. But there are people who kind of go crazy with their fillings, in which case, how different is it? I don't know. I've had some chocolate challahs at friends of mine that tasted like babka. We had it for hamotzi, but I mean, what's it? I don't know. There's not too much of a difference. It didn't have crumbs on top. We do crumbs for babka, but not every babka has crumbs on top. So
could you make it in little balls and put it in a bundt pan like monkey bread?
Yeah, so good. Messy though. I'm trying to think how we would do that with the filling. Like maybe if you rolled it around in the filling and then maybe rolled it around in sugar to kind of seal the filling in so it doesn't seep everywhere, because the filling is kind of like wet. So I wonder if that would, I mean, you could always try. Please try.
Could you stuff the filling back? Could you stuff the filling into the ball, in the middle of the ball?
Sure, totally. It seems like a lot of work, but yeah, sure. Sounds delicious. Let us know how it comes out. That sounds great. Yum.
Can you use
I'm not a huge, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, finish.
I was just saying, I'm not like, I don't have a ton, I've baked a lot of different kinds of yeast doughs and yeast breads and stuff, but actually I have to be honest that I've never made monkey bread. So I'm not the expert on monkey bread.
Can you use a sweet lemon cream cheese with fresh blueberries?
Oh my God, that sounds so amazing. Yes, please do that and drop it off in my house. I would love that. Thank you so much. That sounds so great. The blueberries, you just want to be careful that they're not, if you're using frozen blueberries, I would maybe defrost them in advance so that the filling isn't too liquidy. Just so that your dough cooks through and it doesn't end up being too raw from so much liquid. Okay, we're gonna continue. We're going to egg wash the dough. So this is just a really easy step. We're gonna take an egg, break it into a bowl or a cup, and give it a little mix. I have my little pastry brush here doesn't do a good job of mixing an egg, even though I try every time I make challah to skip the step of getting a fork out of my drawer. I'm gonna take it, just beat up the egg, and then we're gonna take our babka and egg wash it. I'm gonna say this, which is that if you are not inclined to egg wash your babka, then don't do it. Because anyways, you're covering it with crumbs. I don't know how much of a help the egg wash step is, but I do know that it does make the color really nice. But my babkas are totally full of chocolate at the top. So I don't know really what portion of it you're gonna see through the chocolate and the crumbs. So that's my hot tip for the evening. But we're gonna do it anyways because we're doing it properly. Egg wash. And then we're gonna take our crumbs that we made earlier, our beautiful crumbs. This actually makes a lot of crumbs. This makes more crumbs than you're gonna need. So they can, you can store them in the freezer for another time. You can use them on challah. It's great on challah. Sometimes people put cinnamon in their crumbs if you want to give them kind of another life for challah. So you can see, put lots of crumbs on my babka. And we're going to do the same on this one. Crumbs, lots of crumbs. And that's it. We're going to let this, I'm going to let this rise actually a little bit. And then it's going to bake in the oven at 350. Let me just double check. Yes, 350 for half an hour. Until it's golden brown, delicious looking. And the smell will fill up your house until you just can't take it anymore. You just need to have a piece of your babka. And that's it. Babka.
Should we have the crumb recipe if it hadn't been made yet?
Yeah, you could. Yeah, you could. You really could. Every time I make the crumbs, I end up with a lot extra. So you definitely could. If you haven't made it yet, for sure. Any other questions?
Can you add a finished babka at the end of your video?
I can send you a picture, maybe Karen or whoever posted the question. I'm not sure who that was. They can definitely send me a message. Everybody feel free to message me if you have any questions. I'm on the Skokie Valley WhatsApp group, so you can find me there. I'm on Facebook. I'm the admin of that lovely Facebook group I talked about at the beginning, Challah Baking for Dummies. So find us there. You can connect with me on Facebook. If you have any questions, I'm always happy to answer. And yeah, any other questions here? No? Okay.
Everybody says thank you very much. This is my first time baking in 2 years. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. So next class, I hope we're going to be doing bagels. That's the plan. We don't have a date set yet, but it'll be in a little bit, in a few weeks. And I hope you can all join us. It's going to be a lot of fun like this. Delicious. Well worth your time. Get your cream cheese and lox ready in advance. And that's it. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Leah.
You're welcome.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you
You're welcome.
so much.